Did you unmute me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So I'm gonna I'll let you share the screen, but I'm gonna start letting people in if that's okay.
Sure. And then do you just want to, so usually I can write everyone in the chat, so I'm not used to just writing privately. So you're going to monitor the chat then?
Yeah, if that's okay.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Perfect. Cool.
Hi, welcome. We're gonna get started in just a minute.
Yeah, it's always funny when you're like the third person in the room and you just come in and everybody's silent. You're like, I guess we're waiting. So yeah, for those of you just joining us, we're gonna wait a few minutes here. And then Victoria, I'll send you the link. You can probably wait a few minutes until folks come in so you're not just resending it. But for the contact card, yeah.
Okay.
And I have slated an hour for this, correct?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Great. So for those of you just coming in, we're just waiting a few minutes for folks to find their seats, we'll say.
Jess, do you have a presentation that you want to, I can give you the screen now.
Yeah, I have to ask to share it.
There you go.
Okay. Cool. Great. Let me just get some things finalized here.
Hi, everyone.
So
We are just, yeah,
go
sorry.
ahead.
We are just waiting a few minutes for people to continue joining us. Just hang tight for a few minutes and we'll get started in just a minute. Hi, we're just waiting another minute to get started.
Cool. Yeah, I'm all set. So let's jump into it. Yeah, so welcome everyone. We will throw in the chat either now or at the end. I'm not sure when you want to do that, Victoria. Just a link to our contact card for this event. That is helpful if you apply to the Excel program scholarship for students to tell us a little bit about how many events that they went to and how engaged they were with us. I'll get a little bit into the details of the Excel scholarship in a bit here, but we will jump in here. So I'm gonna share my screen here.
I'm just going to add, if you guys have questions during the presentation, if you just want to put them in the chat, I'll be watching the chat and can help answer questions.
Yeah, great. So yeah, I won't get to them right away. And Victoria, I guess if you can answer those, great. And if not, we'll go over them at the end of the presentation. So yeah, just know that if you do throw those questions in there, we aren't ignoring you, but I'll get to them at the end. And oftentimes what I've found is that folks type a question and then it's on my next slide. So there's a reason, a rhyme to that reason. Awesome, cool. So we'll get started here. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I know it's nighttime and everybody has busy schedules and things like that. So it's really exciting that you're making time for this and obviously an important subject here. So we are going to talk about College 101, everything you need to know about college. We're starting at a very base level here, so you don't need to know any sort of prior knowledge. There are no silly questions. I know this can be sort of overwhelming for folks, so there are no silly questions. If you want to chat us privately, and I'll get to that too, but you can ask anything. Chances are, if you're wondering about it, somebody else here might be wondering about it too. Cool. So we'll jump right in. So my name is Jess. I'm a counselor with MSU Denver. I'm part of the Excel program, which is a specific program that works with 9 schools throughout the Denver area. Westy is one of them, and there are perks to being part of this program. So we, in normal times, would be visiting Westy every other, I think you all were Mondays, every other Monday and working with your students. There are a few unique things about our program, but I'll just kind of dive into those. So we do one-on-one counseling with students. We help financial aid, residency, other topics, completing admissions applications. So one cool thing about our program is that obviously I'd love for all of you and your students to come to MSU Denver to be Roadrunners, but we recognize that that's not for everybody. So we are here to help you apply to other schools as well and find really the best fit. So we also have guidance on financial aid, applying for scholarships, bilingual support. So we all speak Spanish and English. Hector is the other person that goes to Westy as well. But if you want to schedule an appointment with us, and actually I forgot to mention that too. If for some reason you wanted to be in the Spanish speaking room, we can throw that in the chat, or you can private message Victoria, because there is a Spanish version of this going on right now that's done by Luis. So yeah, and you can always set up an appointment with us. So down here at the bottom, obviously COVID has had a lot of negative pieces to it, but one silver lining is that we are virtual, which means that you can tune in from wherever you might be. So that means if you have parents or family members that want to tune in, they can do so on their phones. We also have virtual appointments, so you can set that up and chat with us. If you want to invite family to that, that's fine too, and we can talk about everything under the sun. So benefits of this program, again, it's one of 9 schools that we go to. These students can apply for free. Remind me of that because I always forget. We have a code to waive our application fee, and I'll throw that in the chat later, but because I always forget, I'll just tell you it's focus forward, all lowercase, but it doesn't matter if you put some in caps, but that waives our $25 application fee to MSU Denver. Again, I'll put that information in a little later here too. We help with all these things. We also have personalized campus visits, and we help students out with our own special orientation that we have for students. So students that come to MSU Denver can sign up for classes before any other students. And you can apply for our Excel program scholarship. So this is $2,000 a year for all 4 years. The student must go to MSU Denver. And our program's open to students regardless of citizenship. So we work with a lot of undocumented students and have a lot of resources there as well. Cool. So getting into a little bit more about this presentation. Okay. So why go to college? There are a lot of different reasons to go to college, but here are a few of them. So personal growth, really developing those new skills and developing your sort of who you are as a person. Professional development, transition into adulthood, growing your network, and expanding your career opportunities. So it's not just about getting that education, but also meeting people along the way and sort of recognizing that growth in yourself and for others. So just something that we like to mention, a person with a bachelor's degree earns about $1 million more over a lifetime than a worker with only a high school diploma. So that's another reason to go to college. Let's see here, not sure why these transitions are not quite working here. Okay, cool. So there are a lot of things to think about when choosing the right college. So you'll hear me say this a lot, but really college is not a one size fits all. It really depends on who you are as a student. I always tell students to really think about also the best choice for their families, right? So here are a few things. Your academic interests. So what do you plan on studying? That's something that isn't often on the forefront of people's minds, but really important, right? So if you're going to get an art degree or something along those lines, you might not want to go to a college that doesn't have an art program. So really important to think about what you want to study and where that is available. If you want to just be an auto mechanic, then you probably don't need to go to a 4-year institution. You could go to a technical school or a community college, and we'll get into the differences on some of those things soon, but it's good to think about those things. For students on the line, I know you're like, oh my gosh, I don't even know what I want to be or what I want to do. That's one really nice thing about a lot of colleges, or at least liberal arts colleges, is that as you go to college, you start out with very sort of general courses, at least in a 4-year institution like MSU. You start out with general studies, and then as you get along further, you get more and more specific. So you have some time to change your major. I think on average, students change their majors about 5 times. So you don't need to know exactly what you want to do, but it's something worth thinking about, so that can kind of guide your choice in school. Location. Do you want to live in a city? Do you want to go to a rural area? Do you want to be close to home? You want to be in the mountains, out of state, things like that. That's really important. Size. So I know for me, this was a really big one. I knew that I went to a high school that had small class sizes, and I really didn't want to go to a huge school like, say, CU Boulder, because I thought I would maybe get lost in the mix. For some students, that's exactly what they want. They want to be surrounded by tons of students in big classes. So that's something to really think about. Student organizations, so things that you want, that you're interested in. So I always use this example too. I did a lot of theater in high school, but I knew I wasn't going to pursue it as my career. So I purposely chose a college that had theater, but it wasn't that the only option to do theater was if I was majoring in it and was going to do it as my as my occupation. I wanted it to be sort of a club and that there were things that I could opt into that were a little more casual. So thinking about that, what are your interests and does the school have some of those things? Admissions requirements. This is a big one, right? Because will you be admitted is a big question. We'll get into this in a minute too, but it's really important to think about the criteria. I often tell students to apply to 5 or so different colleges, and maybe some of them, they will be more of a reach, and others might be more of a what we call like a safety school, because you know you're going to get in. So really important to kind of think about those admissions requirements. Cost and financial aid, that's a big one, and we have a whole separate presentation that we can do on that as well. And we are happy to help you with all these things, but can you afford it? That's a really big one. And when I say the right choice for you and your family, that can be a really big choice for you and your family and what you all can afford. So really important to look at those things as well. Okay. So types of colleges, we'll get into all of these types of institutions. So can you name the 3 types of institutions? I always like to kind of ask this and see if folks have some ideas of the types of institutions. So I'm not looking for names of institutions, but what types are there? Does anybody know? Want to throw that in the chat? It's okay if you don't. This is why we're here. Cool. So the 3 types of institutions, we'll start with, I don't know why my transitions are lagging here. The drum roll. Okay, technical schools. So this is one of them. So I mentioned before, like if you wanted to be an auto mechanic or something along those lines. So it offers certificates and licensures. So this could be cosmetology, certified nursing assistant, like I said, an automotive tech. Depending on the program, it can take between 6 months and 2 years. So it's generally a little shorter. And then oftentimes a lot more affordable. Credits from some of these schools may not transfer into a public institution. So that goes along the lines of thinking about what it is you want to study. Usually with technical schools, you'll graduate with that certificate. It's really hands-on, and then you'll learn that trade and kind of go out into the world and do that trade. It often doesn't transfer if you were to take that into a 4-year institution. So that's important to kind of acknowledge. Some examples: Bell Ray, Emily Griffith, Denver School of Massage Therapy. So there are a lot of different options here. Obviously, this is not all encompassing. We just pulled this from some different schools. So really you should visit each school's website about admission requirements and what that school might ask of you. Okay. And our second school. Okay, a community college. So this is usually 2-year, offers an associate's degree and occupational certificates. So benefits of this, usually they're local, smaller class sizes, open enrollment. So that's a huge one. Maybe for students that didn't do so well in high school and want to start with a clean slate, a community college is a great route to go because they don't have an admissions requirement for your GPA and things like that. And a lot of students do that because then they can transfer into a 4-year institution. It's more affordable. So community colleges tend to be cheaper. And the quality of the education is similar to a university. So that's what a lot of folks kind of say in terms of feedback. So some examples of this are like Red Rocks, Ames, Front Range, Community College of Denver, Community College of Aurora, etc. Most credits can transfer to a 4-year university. So like I said, really important because a lot of folks will transfer those credits and start at a 2-year institution. Admissions requirements for community college. So there are no requirements. All students are accepted regardless of GPA and SAT score. You don't need any supporting documents. There are no application fees, but you must take placement exams if those are necessary. So something to keep in mind that this is much easier of an application process if you are to go to a community college. Okay. All right, university college or university college, like a 4-year institution. So you can get a bachelor's degree and advanced degrees like masters and PhDs. Oftentimes they have many different programs, a lot more programs to choose from, like hotel management, things like that, criminal justice, nursing, we have aerospace and things like that. So a lot of different choices. Residence halls and dorms. So MSU Denver doesn't have dorms. We're a commuter campus, but many universities and four-year institutions have dorms. So that's something to also think about. A lot of student life activities. So sports and recreation, they might have D2 sports. So the college teams that you think about when you think about football and whatnot, those would be a university or four-year institution. Some examples of these are like MSU Denver, UNC, CU, CSU, and of course, MSU Denver. Oh, I don't know why my transitions are giving me trouble here. Okay, admissions requirements for a university or a four-year institution. So oftentimes they have application fees, so they vary by schools. Ours is $25, but they range from that to about $75. You may have to do a personal statement or a letter of recommendation. It might be needed depending on some students. So MSU Denver, for example, you don't need a personal statement or a letter of rec if you are above about a 2.6 GPA. If you're under that, we will probably ask for those. They ask for your high school transcripts. They ask for an official copy. That means that it is sent directly from your high school to the college that you're looking at. ACT and SAT scores. This is an interesting one because of COVID this year. This student class that will be enrolling in the fall doesn't need these in the state of Colorado. And so it is helpful though to help us place you in a math and an English class. And so that's something to kind of keep in mind. I don't know, it is kind of kicking around in state government whether or not we will adopt a test optional. So that's something we'll get into here in a minute, but that's something that MSU is really pushing because we look at more of the student than just your test scores. So yeah, something to kind of think about. And then competition is much higher. So really depending on where you go, it can be pretty competitive. So going back to the personal statement. So what is a personal statement? Oftentimes schools will ask for this. On October 13th, we have the free application day in the state of Colorado. Many of these applications, including the common application, which MSU Denver is now part of, that application goes out to many different schools. Many of those schools will ask for a personal statement. So basically, this is an essay about you that shows the college admissions why you deserve to go to their school. It tells us a little more about who you are, usually 4 to 5 paragraphs, shows who you are and why you want to go. The important part of this is telling your story, what sets you apart. A letter of recommendation. So that is written by a professional that states why you should be admitted. In our case at MSU Denver, because the students that we ask to send in a letter of recommendation fall under that 2.6 GPA, this is really our opportunity to hear from a teacher or somebody along those lines as to why you will be successful at MSU Denver. We want to make sure that we're setting you up for success academically. So it's really important to ask someone that knows you really well and that has a really good relationship, that you have a really good relationship with. So my parents used to say, you know, if a letter of recommendation doesn't shine completely, it's probably not a great letter of recommendation. So you want somebody that's going to absolutely speak so highly of you. Ask for those at least a month in advance, okay? So that's a big one because teachers have many of these to write. So really important to stay ahead of that and tell your story, right? So helping those teachers to write that letter and understand more about you. So getting into higher education admissions requirements. So these are the here recommendations for what you need to be accepted into college. We'll kind of get into those. So I wouldn't, students often see this and they kind of stress out about this. Oftentimes, if you're graduating from Westy or you're graduating from a high school, you will probably already have these things. I can only speak from MSU Denver's perspective, but we are pretty lenient on these things. So if you don't necessarily have one foreign language or something like that, we can make that work. Some schools can do that. Other schools are pretty strict about these things. When it says units, it just means years. So 2 years of electives, 4 of English, 4 of math, 3 of natural sciences, social sciences, 3, and 1 year of a foreign language. Yeah, so those are high school courses. And again, if you are on track to graduate, you're probably getting those already. So the admissions checklist, looking into what exactly are the steps for you to apply to college. So number 1 is applying to your intended college. Make sure that you ask if you can get an application fee waived. So this is sort of insider knowledge that I didn't ever know about. Now that I'm in the college realm, I understand more. We as colleges don't want the application fee to be the reason that you couldn't apply. So ask people, just reach out to somebody and say, hey, you know, I'm having trouble making that $25 fee, because if you apply to 5 schools and some of them are $75, that can be a lot of money. So reach out to them and say, hey, do you guys have a code by chance, or is there any way that I can get my fee waived? Oftentimes, more often than not, they're going to have a code and they'll be able to do that for you. Do your SAT and ACT scores. So again, this year, not necessarily as big of a deal, but this is important for us to determine what level of classes that you'll be in. I always tell students too, since you're in the high school mode and you're already test taking and doing all those things, it's probably better to kind of get those done now, especially if it's free and you find easy opportunities to kind of weave that into your day. Ask for letters of recommendation. Remember, don't ask last minute. That's another one I keep stressing. Write a personal statement. Show admissions how amazing you are and tell your story. So, will I get into the college I want? This is the big question that everybody is asking, right? So look at the school's admission requirements. For MSU Denver, and this is just kind of a glimpse at our school, this is the average range, right? So we have students from 2.6 to 3.41. Do we have students over that GPA? Absolutely. Do we have students under that GPA? Absolutely. So these aren't finite things, but this is just how you get a view of kind of the criteria and what you might need to be accepted to these schools. ACT range, 18 to 23, and SAT 1010 to 10 to 1200. Don't meet these requirements, still apply. So we really encourage students to submit personal statements, letter of recommendation, things like that. You don't know who's on the other end reading this all about you, and they're trying to piece all these things together. So I like to tell students too, at MSU Denver at least, and I can't speak on behalf of other schools, but we are really looking at you as a whole student. We want to know everything we can. We take that into account, every bit of information that we can get from you. We try and build this bigger picture because oftentimes we haven't met you, we don't know who you are, so we're trying to piece this together. So a great example is I oftentimes have students that have, you know, great grades freshman year, and then something happens and sophomore year those grades are looking really rough, and then junior year they come back, and senior year they knock it out of the park. I'm sitting on the other side of that computer thinking to myself, gosh, what happened sophomore year? In your personal statement or your letters of recommendation, that's a perfect time for you to explain those things. Or maybe you were great in everything and you bombed every math class. Tell me that. And it's not a secret. I'm looking at your transcript and I'm wondering why. So if you show me that reflection and you tell me a little bit more about that, hey, sophomore year, my family moved, this thing happened, that thing happened, I had a rough time, but then I pulled it back together. That's the kind of information that I want to know that you're reflective of and you've grown from and can really use that resilience as you move forward. Cool. So the other question that everybody's asking, how much is my education going to cost? And this is a really good question and one that we are certainly here to help you out with, to kind of better understand and arm you with everything you need. So tuition rates comparison between institutions. Again, these vary depending on the institution, but here's some information that we pulled. This is from Front Range and MSU Denver. So a resident in the state of Colorado at Front Range would pay about $2,000 a semester, and a non-resident about $7,000. At MSU Denver, we're almost about $4,000 a semester, for a non-resident about $10,000. So you can see a big difference between resident and non-resident. That's why getting that in-state tuition is really important. And there are ways to do that also for undocumented students. So we'll talk about that in a bit here too. This is an important comparison when we're talking about schools, because it could mean the difference of what schools you might apply to or where you might want to go. This is the reason that a lot of students start at a community college and then transfer into a four-year institution. This is based on full-time enrollment, so 12 credits. What do I mean when I say credits? Those are hours of classes that you're in during the week. So 12 credits is considered a full-time student, 12 hours a week. I know all the high schoolers on the line are like, yes, right now I go to like 40 hours of classes a week. But don't forget, your classes are going to be different in college than they are in high school. So a lot of it will be, you know, taking notes and listening to teachers lecturing and things like that. But a lot of those hours that aren't calculated in here are the hours that you're going to be spending reading, writing essays, things like that. So don't see this number and kind of sit back and go, oh, this is going to be a breeze. It's a different kind of 12 hours. So yeah, we'll get into other things here. So how am I going to pay for college, right? I want to just say right off the bat, don't let those numbers scare you. One of the things that I often see is that folks kind of shut down and they say, well, you know, college just isn't for me. How am I going to pay for that? I just can't make it happen. So this is why we're here. We're here to support you and to help you find the ways and better understand the ways that you can pay for college. And of course, this is a question not to be taken lightly. Of course, we know it's on everybody's mind, so here to talk about it. So number one, scholarships. So you can fund your college education through scholarships, and we'll get into exactly what these are. I just want to let you know, we have a lot of students within MSU, and particularly the ones that work in our office. They have applied to so many scholarships and gotten so much money for school. They have their whole school paid for and then some. That means at the end of every semester, they get a check and they get basically the leftovers of their scholarships, and they have $5,000 to $100, sometimes more than that, that they can then use for rent, they can use for books, they can use for food, anything that they need to sort of support their life while they're in college. That's something I like to point out because I think that can be a scary number, and to know that you can apply to enough scholarships that it can cover it is really important. So basically scholarships are money that is given to you that you don't have to pay back to pay for school. So there are a lot of different types of scholarships. Most of them don't ask for citizenship. It definitely depends, so make sure that you're checking that criteria. And any scholarship application that asks you to pay money is not valid, so just kind of remember that. So here are some websites that have different scholarships on them. So Raise Me is a good one to mention. That one, for example, is students enter if they had, you know, different A's in math class. Maybe they went to a college visit. Maybe they were president of their class or something like that. Raise Me gives you money for each of those things. So it might give you $25 for every A you got, $50 for every college tour you went on. So those things can really add up. So I would definitely look into each of those, look into these options, look into other scholarships. Many folks ask when these scholarships open, how to apply, etc. Many are open now. And the beauty of scholarships is that they're sort of ongoing. So there are some open now, some that open later. So I would just do that legwork. If you're asking yourself, what can you do to get ready for college now? This is a great one to get a head start on. Oftentimes, they'll ask you for an essay. So yeah, an essay, making a video. Duct Tape had one that was, if you make your prom dress out of duct tape, they'll give you $2,000. I think that one still exists. So there are a lot of different options here. Each institution also has scholarships available. So within these universities, they have a scholarship, basically a program that where you'll apply within your institution and they can give you money as well. So a lot of different ways to pay for school on that front. So Colorado Asset, this is a good opportunity for undocumented students as well. This basically gives undocumented students and DACA students the opportunity to pay in-state tuition. So we saw on a previous slide the difference between out-of-state and resident. That's a big difference, and Asset can allow students to pay that in-state tuition. For those students to qualify, they have to have attended a Colorado high school for 3 years, admitted to college within a year after graduating, and other immigrant status, so students must be in good legal standing or seek to obtain lawful status when eligible. So that's an important one to kind of look at. Yeah, and there are also a lot of different opportunities for undocumented students as well. We have a website, and I can post that in the chat here in a minute, that will outline a lot of different opportunities for undocumented students and documented students as well. The College Opportunity Fund, so this we abbreviate as COF, C-O-F. This is essentially a stipend from the state of Colorado that the state of Colorado wants to give your student or you money per credit hour, right? Per hour that you're in class at a college in Colorado, money for each of those credits. So they'll give you $40 per credit hour in a public institution. And so that can be about $5,800 total over your college experience, so to say. This doesn't work outside of Colorado. That's why it's just the Colorado Opportunity, or the College Opportunity Fund, but it's just for Colorado. And COF will apply to students' tuition if admitted and enrolled in Colorado. It applies to US citizens, permanent residents, and Colorado asset students. And students can apply through that link. We also, in our MSU Denver application, we just have a box that you can check and you can say, yes, apply to COF on my behalf. Very simple. That application takes about 10 minutes and could save you about $6,000 over all those years. So, okay. Getting into the nitty gritty here, the FAFSA. This is probably something that you've heard of. This is one of the biggest things for financial aid for college students. So this is a free application for federal student aid. It opens on October 1st. The deadline is March 1st. So the different types of aid that you can get from FAFSA are grants, and that's money that doesn't need to be paid back. Work study, this is money that's available to students who work on campus. And student loans, so that's money provided to students and parents, but then it must be paid back after college. So this is always sort of last but not least in our books. We'll probably get into this in a minute here, but grants for the FAFSA, the highest amount is about $6,000 this year. So that's a great opportunity for students. So the loans that we talked about, that money that does have to be paid back. If you qualify for loans through the FAFSA, there are different types. So there are subsidized loans, basically where the government pays that interest while your student is in college, and unsubsidized loans, meaning that the interest begins accruing as soon as it's released to the student. So if you aren't familiar with these, so instead of free money that doesn't need to be paid back, this money is loaned to you, and then you have to pay it back over time. So you might borrow $1,000, but after you have the interest that you're accruing over time, you might have to pay back at the end of the day $1,300 just to borrow that money. So obviously that free money is much more ideal than money that you have to pay for and pay that money back. For some students, student loans are, a good choice for them. Obviously, doing the scholarship route is more ideal, and because you have that free money, so important to kind of keep that in the back of your head. Another reason that I say that it's important for your family to kind of discuss that and figure out what is the best choice and what sets you up for success in the future. So some more financial aid options for DACA and undocumented students here. So, this is kind of hard to read here. The FAFSA, we mentioned, undocumented students can fill out the FAFSA if schools require it. So at MSU Denver, we have basically the equivalent of the FAFSA for undocumented students. It's called the DIA. And this is, a Dreamer application for institutional aid. There are other institutions in the state of Colorado that have something like this, so I would definitely encourage you to look into those. So I know that CSU has one, and so does UNC. This is also something that's hopefully in the works that the state of Colorado is thinking of developing as well. We don't have the same requirements as the FAFSA, but we ask similar questions. So we'll ask about family income and things like that, just to kind of gauge what you can pay for school. The student must qualify for in-state tuition through asset, and the DIA can be found here. And I can also link that after our presentation. Cool. And actually, before I do that, oops. Let's see here, got ahead of myself. So before I actually jump into that, this next slide, I just wanted to explain. So FAFSA basically takes your family's income, asks for all of your tax information from your family, and then it comes up with a number that they think that you can pay based on your family's income for college. We call that an estimated family contribution, an EFC. So if FAFSA sees that your family is making a lot of money, then you might have a higher EFC, an estimated family contribution. So they think you have this money, you can probably afford to pay this much for college. If they think your family doesn't make as much money, they might think, okay, so they probably can't pay a lot for college, which means their estimated family contribution might be 0. If your family contribution level is 0, meaning they don't think you can pay anything for college, you can get up to $6,000 from the Pell Grant through FAFSA. So that's important information, and it's all based on your family's income. And they also ask for student taxes as well. So ways to get involved, get informed, know more about colleges, and do this research ahead of time. Visit and tour college campuses. This is something that you may or may not be able to do. We are having on-campus tours still. I always encourage students to do this because it's a great way to see what the community is like there. It's like shopping for a house. You should walk inside of it and look and feel. Is this a place that you could see yourself in? That's a really important point. Like I said, not every school is the right fit for everybody. So get on campus and see what it feels like to be there. Research school websites. We have so much information on our website, and so do other colleges. Research, look into that, look into their programs, just poke around, read around. If you can meet a college rep like me, ask them questions. There are no silly questions. We want to make sure that once you're in, you're having a great time and this is the school for you. Look for information on scholarship opportunities. So that's something you can definitely start doing right now. We have a whole page of all different scholarship opportunities, from anything from Latinas going into STEM to folks that want to play sports, or from different religions and things like that. There are a lot of different scholarship opportunities, and there's no limit to how many scholarships you can get. Talk to your school counselors. So we and your school counselors are great resources. We are here to answer your questions. We would love to sit down with you. And which brings me to, use your school resources. So you're already at this event, you're obviously engaged and want to know more. Really important to look into these things, go to these events, and get involved. We have a lot of resources out there, and we want to be a resource for you to kind of help you out. Okay, and then back to a little bit more about the Excel program, the things, again, that we can help you do now that you know a little bit more. We also have our Excel program scholarship, which I think I mentioned earlier, $2,000 a year for all 4 years, so $8,000 over the period of your college career. You as a Westie student can apply to that. Last year, I think we gave 2 students at Westie, at least 1, if not 2, our scholarships. So that's an awesome opportunity too, and we hopefully have, you've seen us, so now you know a little bit more about the program, so we can help you out. And then here's some of our contact information. So Hector and I are the go-to folks for Westie, so feel free to reach out to us. We have this text number. Also, make an appointment with us. If you're wondering and you have all of these lists of questions, I want to be there to answer them, so go ahead and set an appointment up with us. And again, families can come to that too. Cool. Okay, that was a lot of information, so I'm going to jump into the chat here and see if you want to unmute yourself, you can also do that. But yeah, Victoria, did you have any questions that came in?
No questions were asked. Does anybody have anything they would like to ask? I will go ahead and unmute. I think I can let you guys unmute.
I forgot that they might be muted. So you might want to just throw the questions in the chat there.
Yeah.
I'll send these things along. So our application to MSU is now open. And Victoria can send you our code Focus Forward. So you can certainly use that. Our application takes about 10 or 15 minutes to fill out because we don't require the essays and things like that. Yeah, connect with us, sign up for a virtual chat with us. And yeah, we're happy to ask any questions now that you might have. I know it's a lot of information and it can be daunting. So, you know, other people might be wondering the same questions.
I got a good question about scholarships. And so if you need scholarships, some scholarships are really dependent on what you want to study, but a lot of them aren't. So you can always search based on what you want to study. However, if you just know which college you want to attend, you can apply to scholarships through that college. And then you can also apply to general scholarships. I put a link up earlier about our Future Center scholarship page. I think that's a really good place to start for scholarships, just because we link to the bigger scholarship websites, as well as some of the local ones a lot of our students qualify for. So definitely start there. I just relinked it in the chat, but that's a good place to start.
And I will also put our page with external scholarships. It can be overwhelming because there are so many, but I want to send this along to you all so you just get a feeling of what types of scholarships there are out there. I think even when I was applying to school, I don't think I had this information. There could have been scholarships for someone like me that wanted to do, you know, club theater or came from the mountains, you know, so many under the sun. So definitely check out that website too, just to see what is out there. And I like to tell students too, so the first step to applying for college, you'll apply, you get accepted, right? You apply to hopefully 5-ish schools or something along those lines. So then you have a choice. You know, maybe something happens where you thought you wanted to go far away from home, but now you don't, something like that. The next step after that, once you're accepted, is to be applying for the institutional scholarships at that college. So when you apply to those, basically those colleges come back to you and say, okay, MSU will give you this much money. CU will give you that much money. And then in May, you haven't decided where you want to go yet. You look and you're shopping around, right? You're kind of filling your cart in the supermarket. You haven't checked out yet. So just applying for scholarships at an institution doesn't mean you're necessarily going to go there. It might happen that a more expensive institution offers you more money, so it becomes the more affordable option. So it's really important to shop around. And again, no silly questions. Talk to their financial aid, talk to our financial aid. We want to make sure it's a good fit for you too. Oh, I think you're muted.
You're right, I am. So we got a really good question about how does a student discover what they want to study? That usually leads to where they go to school or vice versa. Can we talk a little bit more about career exploration prior to enrollment?
Yeah, that is a great question. And I actually, I might search here and see if I can find the link to it. Colorado Career Conversations has a way that you can sort of sign in and explore a vast number of careers. But I think, yeah, I think asking questions, talking to admissions counselors, saying point blank, what would I do with this degree after I get out of school? So we have, and hopefully it will be virtual this fall, but we have open houses where we have opportunities where students can come in and they can talk to different departments at each, we have tables set up. You can talk to each department and get a feel for what those alumni do after school, what they go into, what their day-to-day looks like. I think that's you know, a great question, and one that it really takes sort of getting involved and seeing what resources both your high school has and also the colleges have to kind of explore those things. And
I'll jump in here too. A lot of what we do with students through our like AE curriculum, so the future plan that you guys work on, so much of that is really designed to help you figure out what you want to do after high school and what kind of career you might be interested in. I'd also recommend taking the classes that you think you might want to do as a career while you're still in high school, whether that's through the classes we have at the high school or going through concurrent enrollment through one of our concurrent enrollment partners. You can go to the Future Center website or email me directly. I'll put my email in the chat if you're interested in exploring more of those options. And then we'll also be having a virtual job shadowing program that's coming out later this semester. So keep an eye out for that. It'll be through AE.
I'm not sure if you actually need an account to do this, but there's a career exploration tool on virtualjobshadow.com.
That's the one that they're all going to get their accounts
Oh,
for
okay.
this semester. Yep. So you will be getting
Awesome.
an account.
Okay, you use those exact words, and I was like, is that is that a thing that
Yep.
people say, or is that brand? Okay, cool. So that's a great opportunity to log in there and investigate a bunch of different careers. There were things on there that I had no idea about. So really discovering what you're interested in, what that passion is. Again, you can change your major a lot of different times. It is good to have that guidance and that idea. You don't have to know what you're going to do for the rest of your life right now, especially now. Folks change careers a lot, but that hopefully will be a tool that can really kind of open your eyes to new opportunities in that way.
Does anybody else have any other questions? Oh, cool. All right, guys, we'll stay here for a couple more minutes, but it was great to chat with you. Thank you again so much for coming. We will be having a financial aid presentation next Thursday, so check your emails for that as well. That will be going more in depth about financial aid. So I did see there's one more question about being a composer, which is a really good question, and if you need college. Not necessarily. However, music theory is an amazing thing to study in college. So I would definitely recommend looking into some music theory programs, which will give you a ton of knowledge that you would need to be a composer.
Great question. Also, Andrea, that's the first time I've seen somebody use the clap, so appropriately. Thank you. Well, thanks for coming tonight, y'all.
Thanks.
Thank you. Hope we were able to share some knowledge here.
Thanks, Casey, for coming. All right, we did it.
Yeah. Sorry, we had one of our students